Hey, Paul.
Hey, Fab.
How's it going?
Good, you?
Good. Can't complain. I think today will be interesting, right? Every day is interesting, but this topic will be interesting because I want to talk about coaching. Obviously, I work on the operational side of things, but I work with a lot of sales team, and I'm seeing that coaching is not something that's done. I mean, I'm an operations person, so I would like to say consistently, like inconsistently in terms of like it's done regularly, but also consistently in a consistent fashion. So I want to kind of talk to you about how to run coaching calls with your sales team or sales reps. But then I'd like to try to see like can or how can your CRM help you in that, right? Because I'm still obviously a strong believer that if it's not tracked, you can improve on it. And so if it's just like a sales leader doing some random, like not random, but like some coaching calls behind the scenes, like it's hard to determine, what the impact is and so on. I might be wrong, but that's kind of the point of view I have on this as of now, 1 minute and 24 seconds in.
Interesting. So, yeah, coaching is coaching. Well, we've said this before. Coaching is the most important part of any sales manager or sales leader's bag of tricks or behaviors. Because actually, coaching is the only way to change your salespeople's behaviors or anyone's behavior, really, if they want to change. So it's interesting that you're saying you could formalize it by using the CRM. I guess if you're talking about sales management and you go in and listen to sales calls, you could coach on specific things. My belief in coaching, however, is that it's got to come from the desire of the sale. The salesperson has to have a desire to learn and to move forward. And usually, I think coaching should be spent on things that the salesperson wants to improve. What do I mean by that? So, if you decide as a manager that you're going to coach someone on something that they don't believe they need to change, you're not going to get anywhere. So, listening to the recordings of their sales calls, I guess you could say, hey, what did you do here? What did you do well? I'm not sure it's a tracking aspect as much of the content. I think coaching will help you. Well, maybe I'm wrong, but to me, coaching will help you more with the content of what you're saying rather than the actions you should be posing. That's more accountability. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, let's before we dive in too deep, I just want to know like how would you run a coaching call with like today, right? Like you hang up today and you have a client and you're coaching for that, you're doing coaching for them. How would you run a coaching call? And I realize like from what you're saying is obviously they change, they vary, but generally speaking, how would that call look like, or
Well,
Zoom or whatever?
so let's say it's an official coaching call that you're doing on a regular basis. You'd probably want to cover a specific topic in the beginning. So it could be the introduction, it could be quantifying, it could be the discovery portion, it could be the closing portion, it could be the presenting portion. So then we would sort of choose a general topic that we're going to talk about. And then we would walk through what it is they feel to need to be coached on. And usually in my formal coaching calls, I'll do a form of role play to make sure that um, the person can express the situation that they're going through. Um, does that make sense? Yes.
Yeah, and that's where I'm seeing like I agree. Like obviously, like and we've talked about this multiple times, right? People, you don't change people's behavior, you don't motivate people, right? You have to find what motivates them and so on and so forth. And I can see how that's on the same continuum or as at the same level. The only thing what I'll say is that if I'm sales rep, right, Fab the sales rep, and I want to be coached on positioning statements, let's say. But if you're looking in my data, let's say on the CRM, and you're realizing that, sure, everybody can improve, right? But it seems like your intro, your beginning seems to be going well. Like according to the notes you're taking, you seem to be or notes that you're sharing, sorry, Fab, you seem to be on top of like how to get things kicked off, right? Where I'm seeing you struggling a bit, or like whatever usage, whatever words you would use. What I'm seeing struggling a bit is towards the end. Like I feel there's a big drop off between that first call and you running all the way to the end of our process, and and then like kind of like why would you want to start with positioning and stuff like that, right? Like I think if you're just also going blindly and accepting what the salesperson wants to write, like it could be a way of avoiding, right? They know they kind of suck at the end of the process, so they'll try to get better at the beginning because that's what they're stronger at. I don't know. That's how I'm seeing kind of data could potentially help you. Yes, you want to make sure.
And I think you're right. It can help. And let me put it to you this way. It's a bit of a weird analogy, but well, it's not weird, but I think it's a little bit out of. So I see the whole sales experience, or the sales process, sales training, sales coaching as, let's say, the human body. And let's say sales training is the muscle and sales coaching is the tendon, right? So at one point, very close in between, like when you go microscopically, it's not a tendon anymore and it's not a muscle, but they need to join each other. So what you're talking about is that, and the process is the blood, running through the muscles and the tendon and all that. So if you don't have if you have a sales process, let's say you have a sales process that has specific steps in it and things you should be doing, and you've trained the people on this, right? So they know what the intro is, they know what discovery is, they know what confirmation is, they know what the pre-close is, they know it all, right? But like you say, you're looking at someone's numbers and they're making a lot of calls, but you see that there's a lot of good traction at the beginning and then they're having a hard time at the end. So you've trained them on these things and they're having a hard time. So then your specific coaching could be, okay, let's laser focus on this step and see what you're doing and what might be different or what you need to change, right? And then in your coaching, you'll have some role playing, you'll have some discussions, you'll have some conversations. But to me, an official formal coaching that you're going through, and yes, maybe you'll go on in CRM, you'll have found some specific things to work on to help that person improve their success. And the coaching part of it has to be based on your sales process or the training you've had before, right? In other words, I kind of need to know where the pieces and the parts go. I was just talking to a potential client before, who the owner is an amazing salesperson, but of course they have no clue what they're doing. They're just good at it because they're naturals. Well, if you don't create a process out of that and you don't create some form of training out of that, well, the people that are come on board in the company are just, everyone, is going to take little parts and bits and pieces. It's going to be, disjointed. The reason you and I have a job. So I see coaching. So if you're coaching, really, let's say you're at the total tendon part, it's pure coaching. It's based on something that the person needs to work on. And the closer you get to something specific that, it might even go into training a little bit. So you might do a little bit of training, then come back to coaching because you want the person to advance in a certain way. And that's where I see the CRM being part of the whole thing, where you're doing specific parts and you're pulling out some data that's showing you that the rep is having a hard time at a specific point in the process. And then you'll coach to that following a training. And that's, to me, how it's connected. I don't know. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, completely. And it kind of feeds into my next question, which is probably a very silly question, but let's do it anyway. Can you, obviously you can do whatever you want, but should you perhaps anticipate that you're going to need to coach somebody multiple times on the same topic, right? Like, yes. Obviously you might train them once because you hired a trainer and they're going to come in on how to like do cold calls or whatever. So you might train once, so you might coach on an ongoing basis, right? Like, or does that get kind of boring for a sales rep to like, oh man, I have to meet with Paul now, and we're going to talk about cold calling again, and we're going to run through some cold calling, we're going to do some role plays, like, I mean, obviously everybody's different, so it's a hard question to answer. But like, does it make sense to assume that we're going to be coaching for a long time on something, on some topic, or some topics, plural?
Totally. I mean, I think
Hello? Paul has disappeared. Where did Paul go? Oh no, Paul has disappeared. So we were talking about how, trying to fill in some air here. We're talking about how you're probably going to need to coach somebody on multiple occasions on the same topic or similar topics, right? So if we're coaching on cold calling, it's not something that somebody gets overnight, and you're probably going to get them to improve over time. And if Paul ever shows up again, to me, the word I was getting at with that question is you also want to be able to track the success of your coaching, right? While the coaching session itself might be a little organic, it might include some things like Paul mentioned, like role plays and reviewing some of the concepts and maybe listening to calls and things like that. You want to be able to track the success that you're having over time, right? And so you need to be able to be clearly identify, like, okay, I'm going to coach so-and-so on cold calls, and let's see how that improves. And so you need to make sure that your system is set up to be able to properly track that cold call, but also how that experience improves over time. That's what I was trying to head at there. And I'm guessing Paul would approve, or would understand, or would accept, or would like that. Because yes, otherwise it's just like coaching for coaching, and you're not really sure that it's working, and you're kind of hoping like 6 months later that the person got better at cold calling. That's the way I see it. So on the CRM side of things, I think you need to have good quality data in there so that you can identify where the problems are at with each individual rep. Use your sales skills as a leader to coach them and to set up your coaching sessions and to train them, but then go back to your CRM to track the performance over time. Are they getting up to par with your cold calling, for example, on your benchline metrics or the rest of the team? Because if you're not doing that, then it becomes really hard to understand if your training sessions and your coaching sessions are working. So that's where that is. I will stop it here because Paul doesn't seem to be coming back, and we'll see where things go. All right, take care, everybody.